Are you tired of dying before getting to level 10? Maybe you just don't have a build that can stand up to a bunch of stone-throwing apes at the Red Rocks. Let me show you the path of the almost pacifist and give you a way of increasing your win rates. Wayfaring is the skill tree that I use to level from 4 to 20 in every game with little to no risk of dying. In this video, we're going to talk about why Wayfaring is the best skill tree in the game for safe progression, and show that the pacifist method is not only safer, but faster, and offers a wider range of gear, experience, reputation, and secrets than your time spent fighting. I'll show you how to keep using this skill tree to prepare for the main quest line. I'll also show you that this method applies to every character, but it helps Truekin a little bit more due to having the higher intelligence and higher skill points per level. But let's take a step back and ask, what is the goal of the early game? New players are likely to follow the quests and find a way to die. Or maybe they saw somebody go into the waterlogged tunnels at level 1, and so they try that and then die. This isn't really goal-driven play. It's just what they think they should be doing because the game is so open world and everybody has their own way of playing. But the real goal of the early game is to 1. Get levels so that you can survive, 2. Find or buy weapons and armor to help you fight, and 3. Develop a tool set and build that enables your progression. So let's start with part 1, and let me show you why Wayfaring is the best tree for safe progression starting from level 4. So as soon as you hit level 4 and you decide to start putting skill points in, I go straight to the Wayfaring tree. And Wayfaring gives you a couple of advantages right from the get-go. One way of looking at it is that it unlocks the world map for you. I don't actually recommend traveling the world map before getting Wayfaring because the chance of getting lost greatly increases your risk of dying because you can't escape. So it's a defensive tree, but also when you then get the wilderness lore for the particular area you're exploring, you have an increased chance of finding these unique encounters, which includes ruins, which is where you find books that are good for experience and money. You can find layers, you can find villages, and so on. So at level 4, then I go to the overworld map, and I start exploring the Marsh's tiles, tile by tile, looking for the broken mechanical wings. And while you're doing this, you pop into things like this, which are layers. Now that layer gave me 75 experience points. Different types of layers will give you different amounts of experience points. If you find a layer that is owned by a merchant instead of a monster, then those are going to give you on the order of 16 or 1700 experience points, and it might give them to you twice because you find the location and then you actually find the merchant, and both of those are worth like 1700 experience points. In turn, those merchants and their guards sometimes are legendary creatures which have reputation with various groups throughout the world. And so you can use them to do water rituals or oil rituals in the case of robots to adjust and fix your reputation with various groups. This is very useful for quest progression later on. It's very useful for safety in terms of getting good with robots, getting good with the Nepthali tribe in the jungles, etc. Now, the most likely thing you're going to find while you're searching around are these ruins. Now, ruins don't themselves give you any direct experience like layers do, but they do have a very high chance of giving you books, which you can trade for experience. They have a high chance of giving you loot chests or secrets in the form of statues. And those secrets could be traded with merchants, or sometimes they'll show you where historic sites are, which are another good source of loot and secrets and experience. The last major thing you're going to find while you're doing this are villages and settlements. Those are worth around 250 experience points each. They all have a guaranteed 2 secrets that you can find by auto-exploring, and oftentimes traders or quests if you talk to all the legendaries and unique creatures, which are themselves reputation carriers who you can do the water ritual with and oftentimes learn skills or get experience from doing their quests. So once you've filled up your inventory with books and maybe you've found the mechanical wings, you'll be wanting to make a trip up to the 6-day still. On your way, you'll find more interesting locations, probably. But once you get to the stilt, there's a couple of things that you can turn in for experience. The first is over here at the Cult of the Coiled Lamb representative. He'll allow you to trade in secrets you found for Respeth and give you increasingly more experience for each one you turn in. The first 5 will give you a total of 6,700 experience. And if you can get up to 8, that's an equivalent of 21,000 experience. After that, you just head a little bit north and you find Shiva, the librarian, where you can trade in books for approximately 300 experience on average a piece. So what you saw in the footage that I just showed you was my first trip to the stilt. I had barely done any fighting. I had used my rifle a few times against some low-level enemies, entirely on the surface, and just by turning in books and secrets, we hit level 13. So for basically 0 risk, we have increased our reputation, we've found legendary merchants, we've found a number of layers, and we hit level 13 in about half an hour, maybe. So I'll let you compare that to your experience fighting to get to that level. So let's get ready for our first big quest, Golgotha. You're going to find yourself at between level 11 and 13 and need a little bit of extra loot and a little extra experience before you're ready for this quest. So I like to go around, finish up the ruins that I wasn't able to complete the first time I found them, or maybe if I got some through secrets. I also like to go to a historic site or 2 if they're close by to get some extra loot, credit wedges, and sometimes cybernetics in order to complete a build which would get me ready to go down into Golgotha. You'll also be wanting to finish the Rustwells quest if you haven't, and you can find in the bottom layer in the center of each Rustwells map is a guaranteed loot chest, and so you can pick those up and use your wings to fly right back out with little to no risk. So the idea here is that you're completing your little roundup, doing the last quests in the area and doing the last ruins and historic sites, and all the while your wayfaring skill is finding more of that, more books, etc. So you can do one more lap back to the 6-day stilt, get that experience, and then you'll be ready to head to Gritgate. Now I have a separate video about how to easily beat Golgotha. I'll link that here. When you get back from Golgotha, your setup ought to look something like what I'm showing on the screen here. You've got a handful of cybernetics installed. You've got every gear slot filled in with weapons and armor. And you've got a number of skills in your skill tree loaded out for both offensive and defensive and your wayfaring skills. And you're looking to go into your mid to late game setup. So at this point, I'm looking at going into pistol skills because I usually go gunkin, but you could be getting your heavy weapon skills, you could be getting your axe skills, whatever it is. But this is after the point where our baseline setup is finished. In general, at this point, your log is going to look like this. It's filled with layers and legendary merchants and things like that. And you probably have a number of locations on your map marked as interesting sites. You're going to have more locations for ruins than you know what to do with. I actually have trouble keeping track of which ones I've gone to and which ones I haven't, though I try. You'll find you have an overwhelming amount of experience and money sitting in these ruins at this point. So after we finish with Golgotha, I like to head over into the jungle and start making my way up to Ezra. And as before, you'll find that while you're traveling the overworld map, doing whatever it is you're doing at the time, you're going to find interesting locations, and you can pop into them for some experience and some loot. In the mid game here, you want to be very careful about how dangerous things are. So you want to take that first turn before you make any decisions when you pop into a map and say, is this a safe place to be, or do I want to escape? You have 2 methods of escaping at this point if you've been following my guide. One is the wings. If you fly, you can just escape. And the other is the force bracelet. If you turn on force bracelet, you can just escape to the overworld map as well. So one of those is likely to be on and allow for your escape. Otherwise, You're continuing to gain experience, continuing to gain reputation, more books. At this point, you can decide, do you want to turn in the books for experience or do you want to sell them to get better loot? That's fully up to you. And the goal here in general is just to get to level 20, 21, 22 before the next part of the main quest line at Bethesda Susa. The last thing worth discussing about this skill tree is that every character can and probably should be doing it. That's mutants and truekins. It's just the best way to get all the things I've been talking about. But it is worth noting that truekin are a little bit better than this than mutants, because on average they have higher attributes than mutants. So that means higher average intelligence, and they get more skill points per level up, getting 70 per level up compared to the mutants' 50. And so when you then add the intelligence score on top of that, you ultimately have enough skill points by the end of the game to basically learn every skill, whereas the mutants are only going to have half. So let's talk about goals at this point for skills. You want to have all of your Wayfaring skills learned for areas that you're going to be moving through. And then I like to go pistol build, so I have disarming shot and akimbo. I pair that with tinkering 1 and 2, and together I can disarm weapons from turrets and things like that, and upgrade my weapons that way, and then I can tinker them to be more powerful, or tinker any of my other gear as well. Makes for a good truekin build. I always keep an eye on self-discipline and usually get meditate and fasting way to make my cooking buffs last longer, and meditate to heal faster and overcome some debuffs. In tactics, we like to get kickback so that we can push enemies back with our ranged weapons if they get into melee range. In persuasion, I like snake oiler to get much better deals from vendors, both buying and selling. And then I look at heavy weapon at some point. Usually I have flamethrower or we have phase weapons. So that's it for my overview on Wayfaring and how to apply it to our truekin build. In the next part 3, we're going to be going over cybernetics, where to find them, what to look for in general, and how to complete this truekin build to go into the end game. Thanks for watching. Good luck out there.